Hello, I'm Kimberly Acosta. Welcome to the Native News Update on Friday, June 25th. Many of the stories you hear here can be found at our website, IndianCountryNews.com. And here's the news for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. With spiraling crime rates battering Native American reservations across the West, the Senate on June 23rd passed legislation designed to plug gaping holes in the way that crimes are investigated and prosecuted on Indian lands. The legislation requires federal prosecutors to justify dropped cases to tribal leaders and allow tribal courts to impose sentences of up to 3 years, expanding their authority that has been limited for more than 100 years. It gives tribal police access to a key national crime database and allows felony crimes to be tried for the first time on the reservation where they occur. Only tribal courts that meet certain standards, including minimum training requirements and the guarantee of counsel for indigent defendants, will be granted the new authority. For the first time, the legislation also requires the Justice Department to make public yearly statistics on the number of Indian Country cases declined by federal prosecutors, and each declination must be reported to tribal leaders. The bill also makes it easier to deputize tribal police so that they can enforce federal laws, including giving them jurisdiction over non-Indians. The bill must still pass the House before making it to the President's desk, but it has been both significant bipartisan support and the backing of the White House. California Attorney General Edmund Brown filed a lawsuit on behalf of the California Native American Heritage Commission against Padre Dam Municipal Water District and its board of directors. The suit seeks a permanent injunction on construction of a proposed pump station, 2.5 million gallon reservoir flow control facility and pipelines near Lake Jennings. Circle of Rocks, a traditional medicine wheel symbol, marks a site where ancient Native American remains were found. The lawsuit, filed in the Superior Court of California San Diego Central Division, concludes that construction of the Padre Dam project, as approved by the district, would violate state law by causing severe and irreparable damage to a Native American sanctified cemetery or ceremony site. Over a dozen bone fragments from cremated Native Americans have been identified at the site, along with hundreds of other charred bone fragments that have not yet been identified. The area also has one of the largest concentration of pottery shards of any identified site in San Diego County. The suit states that the district's own data recovery report acknowledges that the district impacts from the construction of the project are approved will effectively result in the total destruction of the prehistoric archaeological site. An archaeological dig on the site of a proposed Armed Forces Reserve Center in Rutland, Vermont, has turned up Native American artifacts that could be 77,000 years old. Scott Dillon, an archaeologist with the Vermont Department of Historic Preservation, tells the Rutland Herald 16 projectiles were found at one location and appear to be initially buried together. There were also stone woodworking tools, fire-cracked rock, and containers for cooking. Dillon calls the findings rare and priceless. The archaeological dig was held as a standard procedure prior to subdividing the area, part of which will be sold to the federal government to build a 70,000 square foot reserve center. The federal government will distribute $67 million to Native American groups in 41 states to provide job training for adults and at-risk youth. Some of the highest unemployment rates in the nation are on reservations. Senate Indian Affairs Committee Chairman Byron Dorgan of North Dakota has called it a chronic problem. The Labor Department said that $53 million will go to employment and training services for Native Americans who are unemployed or underemployed. The rest, some $14 million, will target job training for at-risk youth in Native communities. The program will provide job placement assistance along with academic, occupational, and literacy skills training. More than 250 tribes and Native associations will receive funding through the competitive grants. A son of the sports great Jim Thorpe sued the Pennsylvania town that bears his father's name on June 24th, demanding that it return his remains to Oklahoma under a federal law designed to give Native American artifacts back to their tribal homelands. Jack Thorpe, 72, of Shawnee, Oklahoma, sued in federal court in Scranton, saying that he waited until the last of his half-sisters passed away to avoid a family conflict over the lawsuit. His father, a native Oklahoman born into the Sac and Fox tribe, overcame humble roots to win the decathlon and pentathlon in the 1912 Olympics. In a bizarre deal to draw tourists, the merging town of Mauch-Chunk and East Mauch-Chunk, Pennsylvania, brokered a deal with Thorpe's ambitious third wife that renamed the community Jim Thorpe in 1954 and brought his remains to the corner of the Pocono Mountains. Thorpe's three daughters long endorsed the arrangement, especially daughter Grace, a Native American activist who sometimes visited the town's annual Jim Thorpe celebration. But Jack and his three brothers opposed it, believing their father's belongs in sacred tribal burial land in Shawnee. The 9th annual Laurie Piestewa National Native American Games are scheduled for July 15th through the 18th. The Games, which began in 2001, were renamed in honor of the late Laurie Piestewa, who was killed in Iraq in 2003. Piestewa, a member of the Hopi tribe, was the first Native American woman to die while serving in the U.S. military. The Games, held in conjunction with the Arizona's Grand Canyon State Games, have had participation numbers increase every year since its inception. Last year's Games attracted 2,089 competitors. The athletes ranged from ages 4 to 78 and represented 21 states across the country and Canada. Organizers are anticipating participation numbers to increase again this year. Events will be staged at the Fort McDowell community, Salt River community, as well as in Fountain Hills and the surrounding area. There are now 7 sports that are contested in the Games: wrestling, which is new this year, baseball, basketball, softball, volleyball, cross-country running, and track and field. Though all athletes are vying for gold, silver, and bronze medals in each event, they're also trying to help their tribe win the Jim Thorpe Award. This award is annually presented at the Games to the tribe that wins the most medals. For more information, you can visit gcsg.org. Zoila Mendoza, a professor of Native American Studies at the University of California, Davis, has been awarded a prestigious Guggenheim Fellowship to continue her research on the reoccurring pilgrimage that Peruvian highlanders take through the Andes. Mendoza, an anthropologist who has been studying the dances, music festivals of her native Peru, said that she was surprised and honored by the award. Her latest research focuses on the pilgrimage in which Quechua-speaking peasants and herders walk for 3 days and 2 nights up and down mountain paths amid almost constant music and dance to reach a sanctuary for worship. The 85-mile journey starts at an elevation of nearly 12,000 feet and climbs to 16,000 feet. And that's the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me, and have a grand day.